Welcome to the Kawartha Small Business Podcast, where we believe the Kawarthas can be the most thriving region in Canada for small business. I'm Brian Rump from Profit Coach.
And I'm Matt Garrity from Strategy Digital.
And before we get started, head over to kawarthasmallbusinesspodcast.ca/checklist, download Matt and Brian's marketing checklist for Kawartha small businesses. We have a guest with us today. We have Sarah Larbi from, I believe it's Shadow Lake Developments, and the entrepreneur who reached out, and we are strangers, and we are about to have an awesome conversation about what it's like to invest in the Kawarthas. Welcome, Sarah.
Thanks so much.
I hope I pronounced your name correctly. And
it is. Yes, it is. It's Sarah Larbi. And then the resort's actually called Inspire Beach Resort.
Inspire Beach Resort.
On Shadow Lake.
On Shadow Lake. Okay, so I had the lake right. Yes. Tell us a bit about Inspire Beach Resort. I love the name. I love that it's on Shadow Lake. So sure. Please satiate my curiosity.
Absolutely. So I'll tell you, I fell in love with the Kawarthas when we were looking for our own personal cottage. I think it was back in 2017, 2018 that we started, really spending a lot of time there, and that was in Lakefield, and bought a few other things there. But just to give you a little bit of my background, I'm in real estate. I'm a real estate investor. I do this full time now. I just had the crazy idea of, as part of the real estate portfolio, why not do a resort? And this amazing piece of land came up that was already zoned as a resort. I had two other partners I'm working on some other developments with, and I'm like, let's just do this and create something very unique. And so, it is going to be a 5-year project. We're not completed yet, but phase one is just wrapping up actually this week. But we bought the land in 2021, and essentially, as of today, there's 3 cabins that are finished. But the concept behind it is essentially an upscale adults-only resort with different themes. So every cottage inside feels a little bit different, looks a little bit different. And we just want to create that experience where now all of a sudden people can have a different type of resort experience with, extra amenities and all that good stuff.
Awesome. Tell us about the, the long-term vision. So you talk about phase one. Is it going to be, lots of different cottages? Is there going to be some other things there?
Yeah. So this is probably a 5-year project. So right now we are at 3 cottages, cabins, I should say. You could call them what you want, but we will have 5, and then we're actually going to be doing a main lodge area with 4 additional ones attached to it. And we also bought the acre next door. That's zoned residential. That will be a nicer, bigger cottage that people can rent out. Maybe there's gonna be, I don't know how many bedrooms yet. We'll see what we get for approvals and all that good stuff. But my vision for that once it's built is a 15 or 20 person cottage that could still be, people can still rent it out, though it's different zoning.
Oh wow, that's fascinating. So why Shadow Lake? Why the Kawarthas?
Well, I personally like the Kawarthas because of a lot of things, right? I mean, I think a lot. So I personally live in Oakville half the year, then I actually move up to Lakefield for the summer. But it's very convenient, especially with the 407 now, going directly into the 115 for that commute to be 2 hours. I didn't even, when I was originally looking for my own cottage, as an example, like Muskoka wasn't even the picture. I did not want to drive up the 400. And ultimately, I think even if you want to take a weekend here and there, it's easy to go from the GTA to the Kawarthas in, 2 hours or just under. And you can spend a weekend there. You can spend even a night there, and you're not driving for 4 hours. So that, and I love the beauty of it. I love the people. There's all these little cute towns, little stores. So it's just kind of that, like, I don't know, maybe more smaller city, but not that, or smaller town, but not so far away from everything else as well. So Coboconk, again, it's still, in my opinion, still very quaint, underdeveloped. I think there's tons of opportunity there. But ultimately, I wanted something in the Kawarthas as much as possible. It just ended up being on Shadow Lake because that property had the right zoning, and it was already zoned for resort, so it worked out pretty well.
That's really fascinating to me. So was it like empty land zoned for a resort?
So it used to be a resort, I want to say maybe 10 years ago or so. And it was like demolished. And there was one probably of the, like, I go to a lot of horrible houses, but this is up there probably with the, one of the worst ones we walked into. It was exposed to the elements. Like there was like half the roof was missing for 10 plus years. So you can imagine the mold and everything that was in there. So that was definitely had to be torn down, which we did. But essentially it was, just under 6 acres of raw land.
Oh, wow. That's like kind of a gem of an opportunity to be able to spot that. You don't really see that very often.
Yeah, exactly. And there was another one we had under contract a little, not too long prior to that. And it ended up being in a floodplain and all that stuff. So that one didn't work out. So this one worked out really nicely.
What came first? Were you looking for land to think of an idea, or did the idea of the resort come up and then you were looking for land?
Well, the resort idea came from actually having another property under contract and realizing it didn't work because it wasn't a floodplain and there's a bunch of other issues with it. And then I wanted to do like tiny cottages and themed them differently. Like I love real estate and I just wanted to have like one passion project, something that's not like a typical, I do a lot of the BRRRR strategy, which is like, being a landlord mixed in with a flipper, but we keep it, right? And so it's called buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. So I do a lot of that strategy, but I wanted something a little different. And Harry, James, and Joe Ferrara have done a lot of development. They're like very boutique style. They have a lot of stuff in the Kawarthas that they've done as well. And so the three of us kind of put our skills together. And that's how, that resort piece came about. I don't think that they really wanted a resort per se. But I think with like me managing it, overseeing it, like Joe was a Terrion certified builder, Harry's a visionary and all that good stuff. It made sense to do it together. But to me, it's like, I don't know if I sat there for like 10 years thinking I wanted a resort. I think it's something that came probably in the last, 6 months before finding the right piece of land. And then we just took action and bought it and, are creating a reality from our visions.
I'm curious, just do you think you'll have any competition in terms of anything similar in the Kawarthas? Possibly.
I mean, a lot of, so one of the resorts I really liked and we went to visit it, and actually they're super nice there. It's not in the Kawarthas, but this place is called Wander the Resort. It's in Picton. Beautiful, has like higher end type of amenities and that kind of stuff. And so a lot of like my original vision came from, just that type of look and feel. It'll be very different because we're theming them all and all that good stuff. But I kind of, look at that and I'm like, okay, well, they're charging more than just the typical like regular cabin cottage, but they're offering a lot more too. So I think that's what we're looking for. And if there's other competition, there's other competition. That's totally fine. I think the biggest thing ultimately is there's just not a lot of things that are zoned for a resort. So again, how much land is really zoned for that? I don't think it's that much. So yes, I'm sure there'll be some competition. I think it's fine. I think there's enough to go around.
Yeah, I guess I was sort of asking just if you knew of anything comparable, because I can't really think of it. And I think actually, competition is good in terms of this space, because it gets people in the mind of, oh, I don't have to like find an Airbnb. I can go to like a place where, there's a few cottages and there's, a beach, some other amenities. And I, that's what kind of piqued my interest when you reached out and we got connected, because I think we really need that. And I'm a bit of a history nerd in terms of like, small Ontario unique things. And one of those is the rise of like cottage resorts. And in my previous life, I was a commercial banker and I had several cottage resorts as clients. and they were all complaining because they were losing all their customers, and people were, buying cottages and then renting them out. But the other thing they didn't do was they never invested in their cottages for years. So, there's a few places around where it's like, here's an old plywood cabin that hasn't been changed since the 40s. Of course, people were going somewhere else. But I really like the idea. I know myself, I grew up with a trailer at a place that had like a bunch of cottages. And like, I love going to sort of places like that. I don't want to go to like an old cabin that isn't very nice. So like,
and it's a lot, right? A lot of the resorts are exactly what you described. They've just been renovated 20, 30 plus years ago, and they haven't been updated since. And so, are they charging less? Sure. But are they getting, I think there's clientele for everybody and for everything. Right. And so for me, if I'm going to spend money, I'd rather do something a little bit more exclusive, something that's like a different type of experience versus the typical cookie cutter, whether it's a cottage or, something that's kind of old and dated. And I also have Airbnbs. I also have cottages and stuff like that as well. So, do they do well? Sure. Are they doing as well as probably throughout the pandemic? No. I think the pandemic did really well for you had anything by the water, they're still lucrative. But I think the biggest thing is exactly those extra amenities, the look and the feel, the furniture. Like our cabins, we're spending $40,000 of just the furniture for the inside. And we actually, our designer is somebody that created a lot of the Princess Margaret homes and that kind of stuff, Angela from Lakeshore Designs. So it's, we're not being cheap or like, any of that stuff in the builds and what we're creating, because I think ultimately there's going to be a clientele, just like my vision, like me, that is willing to pay more to have that different experience. It is going to be an adults only resort as well. So just like you go to an adults only club or, resort in the Caribbean, again, it's just a little bit more quiet, maybe a little bit more peaceful. I only go to adults only places when I travel, but it's, I think it'll be unique that there's not too many other adults onlys.
I'm so excited by it because, again, I like the idea of an adults only place. I love that you're talking about furniture. That was another thing I wanted to work in is, I go to a few places that are kind of like cottage resorts, but my biggest pet peeve with some of them is like, I know my back's going to be sore the whole week because they have like an old mattress. It's like, you better bring your own pillows because they have the cheapest pillows that are there. And then I was in one, they didn't even have like a couch or a comfortable place to sit. So it's like you go for a week and you're like in a plastic lawn chair the whole time. And it doesn't make me want to go back for like a relaxing vacation. So, that sets you apart, I think, from so many places, just having that vision.
Yeah, I think so. And, and you said something I think that was very interesting is having that person come back. Right. And I think in my opinion, if you've got a client that's returning, how can you create a different experience? And so that's why actually the theme thing came about, is just because if you're going to the vintage Hollywood cabin and then next time you want to go to the lakefront cabin, you get a whole different experience. Right. So I think it's almost, in a way, it could be easier as long as they have a great experience, which is, what we're going to strive for, that they come back and they try something different next time. Because again, they get that new experience again.
I think it's a great idea. And I think it's a massive gap / something super on trend / something that could really drive a lot more business and excitement and tourism to the area. Like, was it last October we went to do our retreat? Yeah. It feels like 3,000 years ago, but it was last, I guess, October, where Brian and I planned this business retreat, and I looked into places to go. And at first, like, my mind just went to like Niagara on the Lake. I was like, no, we need to stay here. Like,
we're the Kawartha.
Be true to the Kawartha Small Business Podcast and like trying to do stuff here. And it was a marketing problem that I came up against, where I couldn't find a lot of resorts. So I didn't even know about Egan Ridge until the last like 3 to 6 months. frankly. We went to Elmhurst Inn. It was great. We had an amazing time. The food was really good, great amenities, all that.
It was themed early 90s. And like my childhood, my mom had been into folk art painting stuff. So this place was like all of that.
Yeah.
I don't think it was an intentional theme that people would love.
It was
pretty old.
It was good, but like there's so much opportunity here.
Mm-hmm.
And not to ramble, but like thinking about what's happening in Prince Edward County with what do they call it, the June or whatever, and like the boutique motels there, and Pitts Creek, the boutique motels there. I love what you're talking about here. I think it's cool to have something a bit more, for lack of a better word, bougie. I used to love camping. I used to love doing all that kind of stuff. But now as I'm getting older, I don't want to do it. I want nice things, I want fancy things. When I get time off now, I don't want to go camping and lay down on the hard ground. I want to go spend money somewhere super comfortable. Like I've had friends ask me to go camping last year. I said, I'm not doing it. I'm not spending my time that way. I want to go somewhere fancy where I feel really good at something luxurious. And I'm not well off or anything, but like I want to be able to do those nice things. And I think what you're going to bring here is just an incredible idea.
Thanks so much. I mean, you know, it's cool because you guys have a lot of experience in the industry and in the area as well. And you mentioned retreats, and you know, one of the things that we are going to be looking at is, we actually did one in August for investors, and we had an investor retreat where we had like beach yoga, we had meditation, we had speakers, we had music, we had a comedian. Anyway, so we, the resort wasn't ready, but we used the space, and we had like a local hotel when we bussed people in and out, but it was amazing. And we had like boat rides and that kind of stuff, and a nice chef that like made some amazing food. But like that is a place that people can host corporate events, retreats, micro boutique weddings, that kind of stuff. I think there is, there's not a whole lot of places around. So we've talked to a lot of locals, other companies, other businesses in the area. Like we do want to bring in the local, relationships as well along the way, Kawartha wines and all that good stuff. There's a great restaurant. Vicky's the owner of the one in Norland there. She's preparing some like different baskets. So like, if you think about it, like if you want, you can do your own food, that's totally fine. But if you would rather have like a breakfast basket, like they deliver it and they bring it. If you want to have like a barbecue platter, they'll like just set everything up, give you everything you need to do your barbecue. If you want to have like everything fully catered, you can do that as well. I'm working with a local chef that's been my chef in Peterborough for a while as well. Mark Brunette, just really, really good. So, you'll be able to do that. We're talking to some RMTs as well, if you want to do like in-house or in-room massages. So like, how do we take what we think is normal and really create something completely different? Like every place is going to have its own private hot tub, every cottage, and so like, again, it's a work in progress. It's not ready 100% today. We've got 3 cabins today and beautiful, beautiful space regardless. But I'm excited about it. I think the area needs it. I think we probably in Ontario in general, I think really Picton has a few things there and maybe a couple in Muskoka, but there's not that many out there yet. And there's definitely not that many that are adults only, if any. And then I don't think there's any that are themed either.
It's so exciting. And I think I'm curious to hear what you think. I think you're at the start of the trend. I look at, you're probably very well familiar with like the HGTV effect. And I know like Brian Baumler and Scott McGilvery were casting for their new show, which I think is renovating sad and tired old resorts. So you're probably going to get some like spin-off of people watching those shows and being like, oh, I want to go to a place like that. And then they find you. So I think that's, maybe on the cusp of another, trend in the next few years, as people will want to be like seeking out those types of places.
Yeah, no, I think so. Like the way I look at it too, and when I used to work full time, I had 3 weeks of vacation, right? And so if I'm going to take my 3 weeks of vacation, maybe it's going to be 1 week here, and I'm going to try to get out of here for the winter for 2. But you don't want to just like, again, everyone's a little bit different. For me, I'm like, I want to do something that's a different experience. I don't want to just go away, and rent a typical average place for the week. I only have 3 weeks. So like, what can I do to create that experience? And I think that's what it is. It's just, you don't have a whole lot of vacation time. You don't have a lot of, yeah, I mean, 3 weeks is 3 weeks. I don't know how people do it. It was rough for sure, but you definitely want to live. And it's just, to me, I think it's more, even after the pandemic, it's just so much more important to have those experiences, the relationships, the friendships, versus just penny pinching on everything. Penny pinch on some things, but like, don't, deprive yourself of unique experiences. That's just my theory.
I love when cool people are bringing cool things to this area, and like things that somewhat exist in other areas, like you said, Muskoka and Peck and all these places, you're going to bring a different vibe to it. But bringing those type of amenities up here is just so, I want to say it's even unique to this area, where we're taking these ideas that don't exist yet in here, finding a cool area and dropping them in. And I think this area is primed for what you talked about, like boutique resorts, boutique cottages. I'm thinking like craft beer, craft cider, craft wines, all those different things. Like I got into golf this summer. There's so many golf courses up here that you don't even really know about. And that frustrates me as a marketer. Where like, I almost want to just start marketing golf courses up here. Like, why can't we make this like the area for golf in like Southern Ontario?
Yeah.
But I feel like we've spent a lot of time telling Sarah how cool she is and how cool this idea is, but I just want to continue that.
You know what, you're right, because I actually, until very recently, because we're actually reaching out to the businesses in the area, I didn't even know there was a bunch of golf courses around Coboconk at all. And so I knew about the one near Lakefield because it's like a handful of minutes away from my other cottage, just on Young's Point there in Lakefield. But I mean, we're not really, Kawarthas is known for like, I guess the proximity and the cottaging and stuff like that, but it's not really known for anything other than that. Right. So like, if you could create some, really cool, I don't know, golf packages, people think of golf. I mean, if people think of wine, you go to Niagara, you go to, Prince Edward County, but like, what can the Kawarthas do? Maybe it could be like, to me, it's the next Muskoka. Like, I think it's still, Muskoka is great, but it's very overpriced, and they have a lot of bylaws and they have a lot of rules and regulations around it, and so they're not as, in my opinion, investor friendly as the Kawarthas. And so a lot of investors are creating the really cool stuff, but it's not necessarily in Muskoka anymore.
Blue collar Muskoka. We should start calling it that.
Yeah. But, and that is how, just not this per se, but that's just in real estate in general. That's how you make money, right? I'm buying these horrible buildings on some streets that like are up and coming, but it's going to be a good 10 years. And I think we have people living on the roofs in some of them, so like, but that's how you make money in the long run. You've got to find, the areas that make sense, that have good upside. And I'm not saying that like Kawarthas is run down at all, but, I don't think it's met at that like prestige level as Muskoka at this point. Could it potentially become that? I think so. It's probably 10 years plus, but there's, I think there's some interest from different builders, different developers that are starting to look in the area.
That's awesome. Just quickly, we sort of bridged to real estate investment and give you a chance. Maybe tell us about your other podcasts and sort of how you help people in that area, in case we have some budding investors listening who kind of want to find you.
Yeah. I mean, like I've been investing since 2013. Originally, I was doing it while I was still working full time because I didn't want to be working the 9 to 5 forever. And so I have, so I have a couple podcasts. One is called Where Should I Invest? I've been doing that since 2017. It is about real estate investing, and I interview different people, kind of like what you guys are doing, just on their stories and that kind of stuff. I'm one of the founders of the Right Club, which is a real estate training education club. There's a podcast on there. And I don't know if you guys watch cable, but I do have a cable appearance once in a while with the Everyday Investor with Rav Tour. So I produce that. That's on CHCH. And then we actually are in talks with Kojiko, because we've got a YouTube show called The Multifamily Investor Show. And we're talking to Kojiko about potentially airing that as well. And that's, a lot of the rundown worst houses you can think of. We do a lot of that stuff in the West End, like Hamilton, Welland, and so forth. And so that's really fun. And then we're also showcasing some of the buildings that we're buying. We have a hotel under contract right now that's went through a fire. Basically, it's all open. We're going to convert it. These are long projects, but into 14 residential units and create some more housing, because we are in need of housing. So there's lots of projects, lots of good stuff. But to me, it's my passion, and the Inspire Beach Resort is like a fun project. I'm actually the most excited about this one out of all the projects, because I think it's a business on its own as well as a real estate piece.
I'm so excited now. You said there's 3 cabins ready. So how do we find you? Can we book right away? Are they ready to go?
They are ready to go by the time that you air this. We actually putting a hydro pole in is like crazy. It's been taking so long. We've been asking.
Yeah, it's a bigger job than people think.
So I won't get into the details, but that's essentially what we're waiting for. And then we're going to open it up with 3 cabins. They can go to inspirebeachresort.com. And there's lots of information there. If people want to reach out to me directly, they can do that on Instagram, which is investor Sarah Larbi, or my website, sarahlarbi.com. But the 3 cabins, we're doing a bit of an open house. By the time this airs, it'll be done. But if you guys are interested in coming and checking it out on Thursday, this week, actually, we are showcasing it for some event planners and different people that are like business owners in the area that might be interested in hosting, a retreat or a corporate event or any of that good stuff. So we'll likely do another one as well, because I know there's a lot of people that are, especially with event planners, they're wrapping up their events, and October is still busy, but we'll likely do a couple more open houses like that.
Awesome. Perfect. Any final thoughts, Matt?
We're at final thought time, because I do have one more question.
Go for
it might be a long one. I'm sorry, but so I was gonna ask you, and then I changed when I was about to ask it, if you almost see yourself more as a content creator than an investor or a real estate investor, because it sounds like you're creating so much content, you're doing so much marketing. And I speak to this other group of real estate investors, and there is always hesitancy with anyone I talk to about creating content, creating marketing. That's my background. Real estate investors specifically in this group are super resistant to it. And they don't think that they need to create a brand, create a persona, whether that persona is like authentic or they're being a certain, like, again, persona, or they don't think they need a website. They don't think that they need all this content. So what I do want to ask you, long drawn out question, was why do you think it's so important to create content as a real estate investor?
I'll tell you the original reason why I did it, and then we can branch off of that. But back in, so I was doing it on the DL for the longest time. Okay. No one really knew much. I was kind of just buying a house, renovating it, buying another house, renovating it. And then I had, the Toronto Star do a feature on me. I didn't even have Instagram. I didn't have a website. I had nothing. Basically there's a lot of people that found me. I think I had LinkedIn only back in the day. And they're like, oh my God, how did you do it? I want to learn. And then so I did this little tiny class, and I think it was on meetup.com, and people came and heard me speak, and I'm like, why don't I just share more of this? I learned real estate originally from listening to podcasts. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to create a podcast, but this one's going to be Canadian, because all the stuff I was listening to, big podcasts out there are all Americanized. And the problem with that is, like, yes, the strategies can be similar, but the financing is so different. The taxes, there's so much difference in like real estate in Canada versus, the US. And so then I started the podcast, and then I didn't have like an end goal to it. I'm like, if I can do it, why can't I help somebody else along the way? If I can, create passive income. I mean, it's, quote unquote passive. It's never fully passive. There's lots of problems all the time, but you can delegate some stuff. But ultimately, it to me, it is a wealth builder, a wealth creator. And so that's originally how it started. And then I hired somebody to help me with marketing, put my business card, I didn't even have a business card back then, together. And it kind of sky balls from there, or whatever you want to call it. And it just became so much fun. I love doing this. I don't know, what the reason is for you guys to do the podcast, but it's a great way to network first and foremost, and really build some strong connections with who you want to have on the show. But ultimately you're providing tons of valuable content for others. And then they'll send you emails and messages. Hey, you helped me. Like, I was able to buy this property, and, here's my new, opportunities that I have versus where I was 5 years ago. So that's a really fun part. But, I think because of that, things, I didn't do the podcast or, all that stuff for a reason. I kind of just wanted to do it because I wanted to have fun and see where it went. But lots of opportunities come from that. Even perfect example, Harry James, who's my business partner, and Joe Ferrara in this project. We're doing some other developments as well. But I connected with him on Instagram because he was doing some really cool videos. And then I invited him to actually be a guest on my podcast. I'm like, okay, this guy is awesome. Like, he's good. Like, we ended up, he was working on Red Brick Lofts, which is in Lakefield, a beautiful, I just driving past it all the time. And I'm like, okay, you're like 5 minutes away from my cottage and your cottage is close by. And then I had him speak on stage and I'm like, and a lot. So I guess where I'm going with this is from the marketing and from all of that stuff that you're doing, opportunities. This resort is probably actually a result of my podcast, and connecting with him from Instagram. So all that is actually really important because you're not going to make money from marketing. I don't make money from my podcast. It covers its costs. I have a couple of sponsors. I'm sure same thing with you guys. You're not going to get rich from making this podcast, but it's like a door opener for so much more. And you don't always know exactly where you're going to go, but I'll tell you, tons of opportunities open up. The TV show I'm doing now, that's probably because Rav, was listening to my podcast and the marketing. And so you are, putting a little bit of effort, and I should say a lot of effort for probably a long time before things open. But as soon as they start opening, you can, you can say yes and you can say no to many things because there's going to be lots of opportunities. And I think, and I can talk about the real estate industry, but it is a small industry. So it is important that you keep your brand, your reputation, your integrity, all that stuff as well. But I think it was the best. To me, the marketing piece was the best door opener for many things. A lot of the projects that I'm doing currently, again, it was from building the Right Club, which is a real estate club, and connecting with some partners on there. And I think we bought 10 different deals this year. So there's lots of doors that will open, and it's not because yes, I could still go and buy my own stuff and do my own things, but sometimes 1 + 1 = 10 because you can really, you can make your synergy work really well with doing business with potential others that bring something completely different to the table. So long, I guess, answer, but marketing may not seem important, today for somebody listening to this, but you've got to think 2 years, 5 years down the road. And if you're producing content, even if you're still buying real estate or you're doing whatever you want to do on the side, opportunities will come because people will have listened to you. They see you all the time. They trust you. They like you. Some people don't like me. That's okay. But you know what I mean? Over time, people feel like they are friends with you because they hear you all the time. So the doors are a lot easier when you've built that over time.
That's awesome. We joke, every episode turns into a marketing episode. So thank you for helping us do that. So any final thoughts? Thank you so much for your time today. It's been great meeting you. I am excited to check out the resort. I think it's exactly what I've been looking for.
Awesome.
And I live in the Kawarthas, so I'm probably going to be a customer, and I don't even have to drive very far.
That's great.
I just won having met you today.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much, guys. It was awesome. And thank you for all you do and being able to showcase different businesses on your podcast. Like I said, we all have podcasts and we know how much work and effort it takes, but that's also great marketing for you guys, because all of a sudden, you've connected with all of these business owners or the people, investing in the Kawarthas. And I think that's a great door opener for what you guys are doing. So congratulations. And thank you for having me on.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Anyone listening who wants to be on, you can do that by sending us an email to setup@kawarthasmallbusinesspodcast.ca, and be sure to check out Inspire Beach Resort at inspirebeachresort.com. Thank you.
Thanks very much.